Well, good evening, everybody. Updating you on the situation. Thunderstorms moving across the metro area as we speak. If you're in the western half of the metro and down just to the west of 35, these are all crossing I-35 all the way down to really the Minnesota-Iowa border. There are no watches, no warnings for the Twin Cities. Just updating you on that scenario because it was possible, or looked possible earlier in the day. We could see some severe weather. And it looks as though that probably is not going to happen for the Twin Cities. Severe thunderstorm watch is still out for south central most counties in Minnesota down into Iowa, but really the severe stuff has been confined to Iowa. As that activity moves into Minnesota, it has not been able to become organized and become severe. And the biggest reason for that is we didn't quite see as much sunshine as we could have. Had we seen even an hour more of sun, that would have destabilize the atmosphere more. Of course, temperatures would have been warmer too. We did make it into the mid 70s, low to mid 70s for much of southern Minnesota. Our first 70s of the season, but you needed a little more moisture, a little more heat. And as talked about this afternoon, if you saw my afternoon update, we're dealing with a very narrow area of really instability here that was the very narrow short time frame in time and space window to see anything actually develop. So this is the system, a little wider view, and you can see the satellite imagery as well. We've got a vigorous low right on the North Dakota-South Dakota border, and then ahead of it is the cold front that is sweeping across Minnesota. We'll zoom in a little bit more here to see that, but that front is actually the focal point for these showers and thunderstorms that are developing this afternoon and evening, but just again, not quite enough juice to become severe. There's lots of shear in the atmosphere, but not quite lining up perfectly to create anything that's a widespread severe outbreak or tornadoes. These storms did start to develop in western Iowa a couple of hours ago, and so we're seeing the leftovers kind of fill in. And so you see this long line that extends all the way into Missouri and even further south of there up into east central Minnesota. And then behind it, it's clear because the air is bone dry. So we go from dew points that are in the 50s to near 60 here in eastern Minnesota to dew points that are in the 30s in southwestern Minnesota. And then behind this, we won't talk about it right now, but there is a blizzard in the western portions of North and South Dakota. So it's snow and wind that they're dealing with. They're all part of the same storm system. In fact, North Dakota had tornado warnings and blizzard warnings at the same time on and off this afternoon. So here's the situation with what we're looking at as far as what's going on in the atmosphere. So we have this very narrow area, as I told you about, of thunderstorm energy, convective available potential energy. You can see that really this is in the bold red contours here, a very narrow area to work with. And the storms are mainly out ahead of that because there's a very short window between where you have enough moisture and heat, and then all of a sudden the air becomes very dry. It's still warm to the west, but the air is too dry to create really thunderstorms and sustain them. So that's the problem out to the west. Also, when we look at shear in the atmosphere and also some of the surface dynamics that could cause, if a storm does rotate, would it be able to produce a tornado down to the ground? We've got, again, a very narrow area along the front with that. And so all of our indices are not very impressive. The supercell index, again, it's a very narrow area. You'd like to see this a little more widespread or a wider area in order to give thunderstorms more room to potentially develop, both in terms of time and space. And our significant tornado parameter, also not very impressive here, though there is still a tornado watch in the North Dakota, in the far northwestern part of the state, mainly because there's just so much shear up there. That's closer to the low, where winds at the surface are moving in all different directions and also aloft. So when that happens, you've got the setup where even not so great thunderstorms, in fact, these are low top thunderstorms, we call them, are able to rotate. So we'll put on the Fargo radar and you can see there are some storms, again, on a normal day that wouldn't look all that impressive, but because they're in a highly sheared environment, even these basic thunderstorms could become organized. So that's what we're looking at in those areas. So right through Grand Forks and heading towards Thief River Falls. So there is that tornado watch there, but the Storm Prediction Center just put out some messaging saying they don't anticipate actually extending that at all, but that it is a possible isolated tornado threat still for a little while, and then they think that they will probably not reissue that watch. Just heard a clap of thunder though here in Minneapolis. So we're definitely seeing this line of storms go through. Again, it's not severe, but there's lightning, thunder, some pretty good downpours with it as well. And that is all pushing through the area. It looks like my radar froze up there for a second. So I am going to try to restart that. But yeah, this is just a one and done kind of line. So once this line's through, that's really going to be it, because behind it, the air dries out very quickly. And so there's just not going to be enough moisture for storms to really get going. So that's going to be the problem with once that line goes through. So we're not going to get a ton of rain out of this either, because it will go through pretty quickly. And again, there are no watches or warnings across the area for the Twin Cities. We've got just barely that severe thunderstorm warning in the southwestern or the south central part of the state, and then also that watch that they're going to allow to expire in northwestern Minnesota. It is out for another hour or two, just because there's so much shear going on in the atmosphere. And again, if you look at that area, we'll maybe actually refocus this across closer to Fargo, and you can just see the spin in the atmosphere because of that surface low. And so any of these thunderstorms, they start going one direction, and in the atmosphere, the winds are going to steer them another. So yeah, it's still possible that some of those could turn severe, but mainly the thing that they're looking at right now in northwestern Minnesota is flood warnings, because they've seen these thunderstorms kind of rotate over the same areas over and over again. So that's been part of the issue there. But line of showers and thunderstorms through the metro, again, for the next hour or two, we'll see this scattered, broken line of showers and thunderstorms, not expecting it to become severe, because again, the parameters are just not that great. But still that isolated risk of some severe weather in northwestern Minnesota here for the next hour or two. And then it gets a lot colder over the coming days. Temperatures will still manage highs in the 50s Sunday, but yeah, only low 40s Monday. Could be close to record cold, actually, Monday, before things slowly crawl their way back up towards closer to normal. Thursday maybe near 60. But it does look mainly dry after tonight as well.